If you have questions or suggestions for future podcasts, please submit them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Karl Marx and Hamas. Hi, I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. How we see God has a lot to do with how we see our fellow man. Okay, a Baptist just crossed himself, although not as my Catholic nor Orthodox friends would do. Belief, politics, economics. When I wrote the curriculum for international economics at Dallas Baptist University, I used this simple diagram to begin each session. Belief systems produce political systems, which produce economic systems. Yeah, I know, there's a lot of interplay, and it goes back and forth to some extent, but the diagram is generally correct. That's why we should not be surprised that the Muslim Palestinians of Hamas have a totalitarian political system and a socialist economic system. Power begets power. All three of those systems are based in power structures. Okay, if Israel didn't exist, the Palestinians would still live in abject poverty. That is not Israel's fault. It's a cultural thing. Now, in most cases, the powerful top-down religion of Islam does not produce a bottom-up political system like democracy, nor an economic system like free market capitalism that enriches the poor. What we study in social science is differences. That's it. We want to know why there are differences in the world. Economics is a social science, so we want to know why the Israelis make about $55,000 a year. Their neighbors, the Jordanians and the Lebanese, make less than $13,000. And the Palestinians make $7,000. Israelis make 8 times more than their Palestinian neighbors. You understand? That's like saying the people of Indiana make $55,000 and the people of Illinois make $7,000. Wouldn't you want to know what is the difference across that border? Top-down religions like Islam identify more easily with top-down political ideas like totalitarianism and top-down economics like Marxism. Karl Marx and the Devil. Well, that happens to be the title of my podcast number 106. That one is based on some comments by Dr. David Jeremiah. I'm struggling through a book right now titled The Devil and Karl Marx by Paul Kengor. The subtitle of the book is Communism's Long March of Death, Deception, and Infiltration. Now, if those three words, death, deception, and infiltration, sounds like the recent Hamas attack on Israel, that's what it sounds like. The book I'm currently reading is hard to read because Karl Marx was personally such an evil person. Now, if you are sickened by the atrocities performed by Hamas against Israelis recently, then you won't want to read the book I'm struggling through now. Karl Marx exercised power whenever he could. He impregnated his housemaid, who is about as close to an owned servant as you can get. 2 of his daughters committed suicide. His personal life is as disordered and calamitous as the economic system he designed. He bullied people on many occasions and very rarely worked a day. He lived off his partner, Friedrich Engels. Yeah, maybe I'll explain more about his disastrous and immoral life in another podcast some other day. For now, just be assured, in his personal life and in Marxism, it's all based in power. At the heart of Marxism is the idea of the oppressors and the oppressed. It's such a lousy economic system because it fails to recognize that both parties in a transaction can benefit at the same time. Milton Friedman famously said, "Most economic fallacies derive from the tendency to assume that there is a fixed pie, that one party can gain only at the expense of another," end quote. Well, Marxism is one of those economic fallacies. The left thinks Israel's prosperity was caused by the Jews stealing wealth from the Palestinians. That is not how it works. Okay, about those oppressed and oppressors. There are about 475 million Arabs in the countries that surround Israel. Their population increased by 8.2 million last year alone. Are you ready for this? There are just over 7 million Jews in Israel. Do you get it? The Arab population increase in 1 year was greater than the entire Jewish population of Israel. But we're being told that 7 million people oppress 475 million? You see, some of this misaligns sympathy for the Palestinians because they're portrayed as the oppressed. That's just nonsense. They're poor because their religion produces totalitarian political systems and socialist economic systems that impoverish them. Power. Barton Swain authored an article in the Wall Street Journal recently titled, "The Marxian Roots of Campus Anti-Semitism." The subtitle of the article is, "The Left Can't Behold Israel's Prosperity Without Concluding that the Jews have stolen their wealth from their neighbors," end quote. Mr. Swain explains, quote, "It was Karl Marx who in Das Kapital first argued that the wage earner in a capitalist economy never works for himself, but only for the owner of the means of production. The capitalist appropriated as profit his surplus labor, that is, work beyond what was necessary to keep the operation going." Continuing to quote Mr. Swain, "The taking of surplus labor Marx called exploitation." Now, this little idea that the wealthy capitalist makes his millions by expropriating what rightly belongs to the worker cast a spell on the minds of 19th and early 20th century radical intellectuals, end quote from Barton Swain in the Wall Street Journal. Again, that's not how it works. In free market capitalist systems, both parties get richer at the same time. We call it consumer surplus and producer surplus, but I don't have time to give that lecture today. Instead, I'll refer to the great Thomas Sowell. He earns another citation by the Christian Economist today. In his most recent book titled Social Justice Fallacies, he explains how the entire social justice nonsense is based on the belief that if one group does well and another doesn't, the rich folks must have taken advantage of the poor folks. That is Marxian thinking, and that's not how the world works. Don't confuse education and intelligence. How did the Germans, the most educated and sophisticated culture in history, become the sponsors of the Holocaust? Yep. Look who's protesting for Hamas today. It's not truck drivers and fast food workers. It's the supposedly intelligent folks at the universities, which gives the name to this section of the podcast. Don't confuse education and intelligence. You can be highly educated but not highly intelligent. And to assume education has anything to do with morality is a tremendously false assumption. Oh, I just can't miss the opportunity to mention a book I read a few years ago by Naomi Schaefer Riley. It's called The Faculty Lounges. The subtitle is, "And Other Reasons Why You Won't Get the College Education You Paid For." See, lounges in the title of her book is a verb, not a noun. She explains that once they make tenure, faculty don't work very hard. Now, back to the power idea. Islam is based in power. Islam is the religion of submission, even though they often try to tell you it's the religion of peace. So this powerful religion has no time for education. My podcast number 100 is titled Takers and Makers. The Israeli culture is a making culture, while the Palestinians have a taking culture. I was lecturing on a cruise ship some years ago, and a Jewish guy from Houston asked if I had read the book titled Startup Nation. And at his recommendation, I read the book. It describes how the Israelis have developed a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. It's really fascinating. So they have used this entrepreneurial spirit, what I would call made in God's image creativity, to enrich themselves. Neil Ferguson at the Hoover Institution points out that free market capitalism has the element that continues to allow Marxism to flourish. What is it? The freedom to be stupid. Marxism does not contain that flaw. Citizens in repressive nations are not allowed to express free market capitalist ideas. So, once they adopt a totalitarian political system, Marxist economics usually follows. As Fox business expert Charles Payne said, "You can only vote for socialism once." Relativism and postmodernity. When Abraham decided there was only one God, the world changed. If there was only one God, then there could be right and wrong. But if everyone had their own God, small g, then a number of things could be right. Relativists are trying to change the world back to pre-Abraham ways of thinking. But it doesn't make any sense. The phrase, everything is relative, is an absolute statement. Ginger and I were on a bus in France a few years ago, and someone made a comment about some Frenchman being a great humanist. I whispered to Ginger, without God, large G, there can't be great and non-great, because it's all relative. But then, as Ginger often says to me, there you go, thinking again. And supporters of Hamas are not thinking. We're living in this strange time when emoting and virtue signaling are viewed as a legitimate form of academic discussion. Many faculty members are afloat in a world that teaches people to discover their own truth. Many universities are enmeshed in relativism, moral emptiness, and even nihilism. A powerful religion leads to a powerful political system, which leads to a powerful economic system that impoverishes its participants. I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. Fear God, tell the truth, earn a profit. See you next time. For more information, please visit us online at davearnott.com. If you have questions or suggestions for future podcasts, please submit them online or in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.